War in the Gulf, Day 2. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Joanna Paul and this is a special edition of Nightline. Also tonight, first pictures of the Baghdad siege. Baghdad retaliates, Israel is the target. Tense times for the Jewish community in New Zealand. Thanks for joining us. Over the next hour, Nightline will examine Day 2 of the Gulf War with the latest pictures and details of a dramatic military and political developments. The big news of today, 8 Iraqi Scud missiles hit targets inside Israel, injuring 12 people. The Israeli cabinet is talking about fighting back, but President Bush, desperate to keep Israel out of the war, is promising the Allied force will do the job. But first, back to Day 1 of Operation Desert Storm. Late this afternoon, the first pictures came out of Iraq showing how the war began.
The sirens went off at 20 to 3. There was, of course, very little traffic on the roads at that point, and the tracer began springing up all round us. Our driver refused to take us any further and insisted on going back to the hotel, where we watched the battle from a 5th-story window. At the moment, we're waiting for the American bombers to come. All the firing that's going on, and there's a great deal of it, is just pretty wildly up in the air. It doesn't seem to be aimed at anything. It looks as though they're just getting ready for the big attack, preparing themselves, and just firing at nothing. What we didn't know at that stage was that the Allied planes were too high for us to hear, and certainly too high for the outdated technology which Iraq has to hit. And the missiles, as they went over, made surprisingly little noise. The hotel staff, the other guests, and many of the journalists were down in the big shelters 50 feet below ground. After an initial panic, things calmed down quickly. People first of all became used to the overcrowding and the strange and bewildering conditions, and then they started to try to keep their spirits up and even enjoy themselves in a strange sort of way. Armed guards made it very difficult for us to get out of the shelters and back into the main part of the hotel, but in the end we managed it. At first light, the city looked virtually unchanged. The fears about carpet bombing and indiscriminate attacks on residential areas turned out to be unfounded. The bombs and the missiles seem mostly to have landed with pinpoint accuracy. The telecommunications center, which we couldn't film, was plugged neatly by at least 2 rockets. There was a cloud of smoke over the Defense Ministry, which had been completely taken out, presumably by missiles. We headed out again through the deserted streets. For the most part, only soldiers, whom, again, we couldn't get shots of, were around, leaderless and bewildered. We were quickly spotted and stopped by a security policeman in an unmarked car, but we managed to trick him into coming back to our hotel, where we gave him the slip.
ABC News broadcast the first pictures of the Baghdad attack. The camera position here is looking west across a sparsely populated area towards defensive positions ringing the city. The outgoing Iraqi artillery fire is coming from positions like this, atop a government building. But with no chance of hitting the Allied aircraft, the shooting can only serve as a morale booster. BBC producer Anthony Massey, who's just left Baghdad, says by contrast, the Allied firepower was deadly accurate.
The damage to military targets was very precise. It was very noticeable that they hit exactly what they wanted and did minimal damage to buildings around that. For example, I watched the telecommunications center be blown up, and the damage to the buildings around it appeared to be absolutely minimal. It was a very skilled and precise operation.
Do you think that they were surprised by the scope of the attack when that first wave came in from Operation Desert Storm?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. They were, both at a government and a popular level, they were astonished, shocked. They didn't expect it to happen at all. They didn't expect it to happen in the way it did under any circumstances. People talk how they have 8 years of experience of the Gulf War, but they have no experience of the kind of thing that was put against them the other night, and it was just something that they were not ready for.